Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.
Unfortunately, I would say no, we've learned nothing. We are behaving like the Roman baboons who learned nothing. Because the provocative, insensitive, exhibition of intolerance, contempt for the popular will of the Nigerian people that made the military clique of Babangida's government and himself to annul the June 12th election have been repeated severally today. The manner by which President Buhari is administering Nigeria, it is like it is his personal conclave. And he treats everyone who criticizes him as one of those who are conspiring to topple his regime. How do you reconcile Buhari's responses to the questions put to him on Arise television yesterday? He evaded the major question. The only one he could talk about was that he was going to force down the throat of Nigerians to return to the what do you call the land
open grazing,
grazing parts that was established by the colonial masters, not forgetting, or is pretending to forget, that in the 1979 so-called military constitution, the government he participated in inserted out of the, one of the 17 private insertions that are not considered by the Constitutional Assembly, included the Land Use Act. The Land Use Act vests in trust all lands in the hands of the presiding governor of each state. Federal government has no authority over any land beside its own. It has to ask, even if it was going to do anything in any state, it has to ask the state before it could really operate. So the disdain, the contempt with which President Buhari had treated the credible campaign of the ethnic nationalities that were the building blocks upon which Nigeria was constructed by the British colonial master is totally unbecoming, unacceptable, and it has to stop. He must stop pretending as if he's the Lord of the manor. It's not. When people, even so-called elected you into office, they ceded a little part of their rights to you for that specified period. But sovereignty remains with the Nigerian people, not in him.
All right, Opadokun,
yes.
you were in that struggle for the actualization of democratic rule after the annulment of June 12 election. What stood out in that election in 1993 that you think Nigeria should bring back in this upcoming election in 2023 and subsequent elections in Nigeria that has not been happening?
Thank you. I've said this. I've responded to this question for over 26 years now. That on that day, Nigerians of all walks of life decided to bury the dubious national divides of North-South, Christian-Muslim, majority, minority, and decided to vote for a candidate of their choice, to the extent that Chief MK Abiola of the SDP won in 28 states out of the then 30 states of Nigeria. And he defeated Alhaji Bashir Tofa in Kano State, where he came from. That was a pan-Nigeria mandate. If that victory was not annulled, it could have signified a united Nigeria, that anyone from any part of the country, either majority or minority, either Christian or Muslim, either wealthy or poor, have equal authority and equal stake in Project Nigeria. But the power brokers, the power hangers, the military, the politicians in uniform, then led by Babangida and the likes, they decided to be contemptuous of that popular will of the Nigerian people. And until we return to that, Nigeria secured its independence on a federal constitutional governance. It was the military that violently and treasonably overthrew the legitimate elected regime of Alhaji Tafawa Balewa and substituted a federal negotiated constitution in 1960 as 63 with series of decrees which have now centralized and unitarized Nigeria since then up to today. Nigeria is living a lie since then by calling ourselves a federal republic of Nigeria. We are not federal in anything. We are being governed centrally and unitarily. And until we return to that federal constitutional governance, there is no hope for any development in the country. That is the truth of the matter, because this is an heterogeneous society, a heterogeneous country. We have over 350 ethnic groups in Nigeria with different languages, different religion, different tradition, different cultures, different customs, different artifacts, different folklores, different mores, different morals. So it is impossible in any heterogeneous society to centralize governance. Power has to devolve to the component units so that they can manage their affairs, and then you meet at the center. That was what we had in the First Republic. And there was better governance. A lot of what you now have in the country, the LA was started then. So until we turn to that federal constitutional arrangement, we are stationing the shadows.
All right. Opadokun, you said something earlier in your response about how Nigerians took the decision to bury the campaign of national divide at the time, just before that election in 1993, and decided to vote for MKO Abiola at the time. I'm thinking about the fact that, you know, the people made that decision, took the decision, and acted upon the decision that they took. I want us to take this back to the, you know, to the purview of the people. Why, in your own opinion, do you think that the people cannot do the same at this point in time, reject and refuse the idea of divide and rule that today's leaders seem to propagate at every level, and just decide to vote for the person they know will lead Nigeria in the way that they deserve?
Well, let me respond as follows. The military had done too much damage to the corporate existence of Nigeria. Nigeria never accepted the diktats, the decrees, all the decrees that they have manufactured since the stage insurrection on January 15, 1966 are illegalities, and all institutions produced by them to tomorrow will remain an illegality. They were the ones, after overthrowing the democratically elected government, they corralled most of those credible leaders of ours into prison. When they were going to return power again in 1979, they returned power to some of them. The ones who were doing very badly in the First Republic, they gave back power to them. And when they were taking over power again from them in December 1983, they carry all of them, most of them, into detention, and then call them discredited politicians. In the process, what they have done is to undermine democracy and democratization in Nigeria. They've not allowed democracy to grow. They've really frustrated the emergence of a credible and sustainable democratic practice which can produce dependable characters. If you take a look today, I say without any inhibition or any doubt in my mind that the greatest majority of those who are so-called politicians today are military surrogates, military loyalists, military sympathizers, military acolytes, and because of that, they were sponsored. They do not represent Nigerians. And because it is this same military who has centralized the manner of election, and they don't want any credible election. Justice Mohammed Uwais Electoral Reform Panel made recommendation as to how we can get credible election in Nigeria. They have refused that up to tomorrow. One of the key recommendations of Justice Uwais Electoral Reform Panel is that the sitting executive should not appoint the electoral umpire. But that is what obtains today. President Buhari is the one who appointed the current chairman. He appointed the last one. Jonathan appointed the last one. And Buhari sustained him in office. And this one too was appointed by Buhari. President Buhari's party is they are contesting in the election. It's just like saying that Enugu Rangers and Shooting Stars are playing football match, and you have Shooting Stars to nominate the referee. You know the results from the beginning. That's why you don't have credible results. The results are mostly predetermined, and that's why there's so much violence. So you cannot have that kind of election that you had in that time, because all that Nigerian people wanted was to see the back of the military, that they should go back to the barracks. Babangida's government did a lot of maneuvering not to allow even that election to hold. But the pressure within by those of us in the civil society and the international community forced his hand to allow that election to hold. In fact, the preparation that he ought to make toward that election were not made. There was no polling booths. Yet God Almighty, in His Majesty, ensured that there was no rain. And that election took place and produced the result they never expected.
All right,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, The flaws that you are looking at now, which you think has caused the problem that Nigeria has not had, what is called a free and fair election, or the one that should be likened to what happened on June 12, 1993, do you think the present ongoing constitutional review by the National Assembly will address some of these flaws and electoral reform as well, so that going forward we can have an election that we can say, is very close to what happened that year?
The so-called constitutional review is an unproductive venture. It's a wasteful exercise which they have repeated for almost 14 years now. At least they have done it almost 4 or 5 times. And each time they spent humongous sum of money on the unproductive exercise. The first time they even secured volume of funding from development partners to do a constitutional review. But what did we get out of it? In the first place, Nigerians deserve a new constitution, not an amendment. It is not the business of the National Assembly to undertake by itself that is going to write a new constitution, because Nigerians, when they must sit down, and when they sit down, the manner of which kind of parliament Nigeria wants will be a subject matter of discussion. So that institution itself is one of the topics to be discussed. They cannot make laws for us. What they are doing is not only deceiving Nigerians, they are wasting Nigerian resources, but because they're in power and they have the encouragement of the unproductive executive, they are busy gallivanting about frolicking. Because look at what they said they are doing. They went around of recent, and there was crisis in many zones of the country. They were supposed to do an open thing. They went into hotels in some places. How many hours did they spend? They have done that now more than 4 or 5 times. It has not produced anything, and it could never have done so, because the basic matter that ought to lead to an autochthonous constitution cannot be touched by them. Nigeria must produce its own constitution. We had one. That is what we should return to. And in the light of the balkanization of Nigeria that the Nigerian army had done, we can now make amendments to that 1963 constitution to accommodate all the atrocities, the balkanization of Nigeria into atomized component units that are unviable. Today, Nigeria spent almost 80% of its earning on the current expenditure. What is Nigeria doing with 36 states? What is the state of our economy? What value is these two National Assembly with the large crowd that you have there? Those are part of the thing that Nigeria must sit down to review and determine.
But in the interim, Pa Opadokun, just a follow-up on that. In the interim, because what you're talking about, Nigerians sitting down to discuss, how the country should be run, it seems to be a long-term project. So in the interim, the constitution that we have, of course, has been used by several governments. The Obasanjo administration used it, the Jonathan administration used it. So many people are actually saying that even the good parts of the constitution are not being implemented. So it's not really about the documents, a legislation, but about implementing what is in the letters of the legislation.
You know, my response to your question is this error that is made generally by most Nigerians. You are assuming, you are accepting that the military decrees that were issued, even to put into effect the so-called 1999 constitution, is legitimate. And I say no to it. I reject it. The idea of adopting certain portion of the so-called 1999 constitution is abhorrent to people like us who laid down our lives to restore Nigeria to what we thought was going to be democratic. Unfortunately, what we have had since 1999 is an hybrid, because the military power brokers decided to impose and foisted upon us one of their leaders, in the name of President Obasanjo. And he decided to impose his will on a successor that he brought for us, knowing fully well the limitation of his successor. And what do we get out of that? Gradually, they move to another general. Let me remind Nigerians, by the time that President Buhari will finish his term of 8 years, the Nigerian military could have spent 28 years in full military uniform, and they could have spent 16 years in Agbada. If you had 28 plus 16, that is 44 years out of 61 post-Nigeria so-called independence. You can see the evil, the negative impact the military had foisted upon Nigeria. So there's no way you can produce leaders who will be ready to abide by the spirit and the letter of the Constitution, because it was not made by us. The 1999 Constitution that was brought into effect by Decree 24 of 1920 or 1999 says we, the people. Nigeria never participated in the writing of that Constitution. And so that Constitution cannot produce the kind of people who will be willing, ready at all times to be obedient to the spirit and the letters of that law.
Okay. All right, Pa Opadokun, I want to, again, you have constantly touched on the crop of leaders that Nigeria has today, which, from everything you have said, is actually the bane of this country when we talk about democracy. I asked earlier, and forgive me, but I want to go back to it. From your comments that the present crop of leaders we have today, most of them are beneficiaries and sympathizers of the Nigerian military. So if you don't think that this present crop of leaders can do right by Nigeria, again, what then can the people do? Because governance, as we all know, is not for a few. It's government for the people, by the people as well. So the people have a say in this. How do they begin to galvanize and organize themselves to be able to participate and hold governments at all levels accountable?
Thank you very much. It's a major matter of concern to some of us. Fortunately, God in His Majesty is been very kind to Nigeria. I'm saying, giving you the authoritative statistical analysis even from the office of Federal Office of Statistics. Age 0 to 19 today constitutes at least 50% of Nigerian population. If you extend it to 30, they are up to 60%. My challenge is to the young people, young Nigerians. They should take their destiny into their hands. They should then start the process of educating, conscientizing, and mobilizing the youth of youthful age to start participating in their different worlds of existence, so that they will be in a position to elect those who will be their ward executives. In the process, will participate fully in the emergence of those who will be sponsored for election. That is the only way. They should stop lamenting. I don't want. I hate the god of lamentators who will be complaining that this one has stolen 1 million, that legislator has stolen 3 million, that minister has stolen 20 million. The fact of the matter is that all of us must be involved. All adults needed to be involved, and they should be involved right now. They should participate actively at their ward level to ensure that they elect the right people as the executive of their wards. That should lead to that the local government executive. It should lead to that of the state, and then the nation. Then they will be able to elect people of their choice for election. But as long as you leave it for these military politicians and their surrogate, the civilian collaborators, there's no hope for Nigeria. And I'm sorry, in the process, what we have done is to do incalculable damage to the corporate existence of Nigeria. Nigeria is a giant with a feet of clay. Nigeria has failed to respond to its manifest destiny as the leader of the black man. The black race look up to Nigeria for leadership. And if we cannot even provide leadership for ourselves, you see, we have failed abysmally. And that is the unfortunate situation.
All right, Pa Opadokun, one thing is very significant. Tomorrow is June 12, and I think it's the second year since June 12 was declared Democracy Day by the current administration, President Buhari, which took everybody by surprise, because this agitation has been on for a very long time. Even when the power returns to civilian rule, the then President Olusegun Obasanjo, who hails from the place, of course, Ogun State, where MKO Abiola hails from, didn't yield to that. President Jonathan tried to do that by actually immortalizing MKO by trying to name the University of Lagos after him, and that also hit the rock. But incidentally, or should I say surprisingly, President Muhammadu Buhari, declared that day a Democracy Day. Isn't that a mean fate that the current administration should be applauded for?
Well, I dare say without any fear of contradiction that the step that President Buhari took in 2019, surprisingly on June 6, was in the right direction. But like Nadeko reacted with unanimity, that accepting the fact that Abiola won election and declaring June 12 a Democracy Day were not enough. We are past that day, that stage. What Nigerians desired when they were doing that voting on that day was for a federal constitutional governance that we have not got up to today. And this government, President Buhari, had been very, very repellent He has total disregard and total respect and contempt for the agitation of the nationalities from about 4 zones of the country who had been clamoring for us to return to the federal constitutional governance upon which we secured independence. He's insisting that the military decreed arrangement that they have made must stand, and it will not stand. It cannot stand. The world community is not waiting on dictators to continue to hold other people into ransom. I need to remind the Nigerian states that all countries that were held together by force of arms never survived. There's no Union of Soviet Socialist Republic on the world map any longer. Lenin and others coupled that society together. It was large, wide, and that's what they call the Eastern Bloc collapse. Once upon a time, there was Father Joseph Tito, who presided over a conglomerate that you call Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia is no more on the world map today. Yeah, I can remind you also that the crisis you are having in Ethiopia today started a long time when the old man, Haile Mariam Selassie, the Lion of Judah, when he was presiding over Ethiopia, it was all the component units were forced together by force of arms, and the crisis remains today. So the fact that Nigeria is being held together by force of arms cannot last. There's no way it can last. Having regard to the kind of effort that we put together as NADECO, 1994 to 1998, and the manner of repression, handling of oppression, the privations that we went through, that cannot be allowed to go for fun. So if anybody is still pretending that he wants to go to the old spectacle, it will not work. The present power brokers must understand that the world has gone beyond that. And the idea of banning social media so that they will not repeat and they will not expose atrocities that are going on can never serve the interests that you want to cover up. That's the truth.
All right. Opadokun, you mentioned Twitter, and I just want you to also, just respond quickly to the interview that the president granted yesterday on Arise TV, and let us know your thoughts. Do you think the president, dealt with the issue of security, the economy, food security, the inflation, and some of the other issues that Nigerians are currently disturbed about? How do you take the president's response to these questions?
The president's response was grossly inadequate, superficial, evasive, and it was he has disdain and contempt for the Nigerian people. That's my reading of it. Rather than respond to critical questions put to him, he was evading them, and all that interested him most was to navigate way again for the headers to be able to roughshod their way through all Nigerian parts. That will not happen. So I very much I was disappointed. That's the truth of the matter.
Opadokun, still talking insecurity, the president in that interview also did say the governors of all the states in the federation aren't doing enough to tackle the problem, that they should just go and sort their problems out. Do you think, in your own view, that the governors are actually, who are actually the chief security officers of their states, but keep crying every day about the level of insecurity in their region, do you think they are doing enough?
I know, Mr. President, inside him, he knew it was not right. He knew he was not speaking the truth. He knew he was just being speaking from two sides of his mouth. There's no place where it is written in the so-called the disputed 1999 constitution that the governors are the chief security officers of their state. There's nowhere where that is written. And in any case, if you call somebody the chief security officer of the state, that fellow must have power and authority to enforce laws. Now we have a centralized Nigerian police that is controlled by the Inspector General of Police. No governor can issue a directive to the police commissioner. That commissioner will have, he reports to the Inspector General of Police. Inspector General of Police takes operational orders from the president. So how can the governor secure the state? And those are the part of the gross abnormalities of the Nigeria so-called federation. They know that they are not practicing federalism. In all federalism, because each component unit can establish their own parliament and they can make laws legally too, they are entitled to be able to establish their own police forces to enforce the laws made by their parliaments. That's the way it is done. Today you have a centralized police and you bring people from different parts of the country to police in other parts of the country. They have no idea about the culture, about the tradition. Police security is essentially local. And until we return to that, we're going to get out of the wood. But let me tell you, finally, it is the greatest assault on all of us that non-state actors have become much more dominant, much more forceful, much more violent, and they regularly target civil and military targets at will. And Nigeria's security system had just been reacting. And all that we have from President Buhari in the last 6 years is the promise he will secure Nigeria. It was in his manifesto that he will secure Nigeria. And being a military general, we thought that he will actually do so. But the non-state actors are much more powerful today. The ammunition arsenals in their hands with which they have been unleashing terror on all of us are much more potent than that of government security agencies. And that is dangerous, because that's what that will lead to is anarchy. And anarchy can consume all of us together.
All right, Opadokun, because we're also looking at the fact that some of these non-state actors you're talking about are actually from different regions of the country, which are governed by their subnational governments. And we do know that some of the root causes of insecurity in some of these regions is unemployment. Do you think the governors in these regions are also doing enough to provide jobs for the teeming population of youths, and also talk to them in a sense that they will understand that violence is not a way to agitate for whatever thing they need?
Well, to you, when you when there are always two sides to this match. When those who are in power call somebody a rebel, the fellow most likely would be a nationalist, some other people. The Nigerian state has overbearing control over the entire country. The policy thrust they enunciated and are implementing makes it either easier or difficult for economy to thrive. What can the governors do? What most of the resources of the regions have been taken, appropriated to the central government. That is why most of them do nothing now in terms of internally generated revenue. All that they have to do is to wait for the manna that will come from the federation accounts. It's a fact that some of them might not be doing enough, but few of them are doing the best they can do in the circumstance. Let us return to the federal constitutional governance with the concomitant return of all that used to belong to the regions and those component units. You will see that the economy will thrive better. Our people will be able to govern themselves better. They will don't need to wait for a Father Christmas from Abuja in order for them to live their lives. And then youth employment will be better face quality, because we have abandoned the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, which is agriculture. All the efforts that have been made by the so-called central government, anchor borrower from central bank and that kind of a thing, because they are being done under a centralized and unitized system. It has not had the kind of positive effects that can really manifest in increased production and make Nigeria to benefit from its potentials in agriculture.
Ayo Opadokun, I'm sure yesterday you are aware of the meeting of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Abdulsalami, and other members, elders of the Nigerian Society meeting for about 9 hours yesterday in Abuja. The communique of that meeting, we have learnt, will be shared later. And however, we do know that they will be meeting with the president soon. My question is, the exponential rise in insecurity in Nigeria is a source of concern for almost everyone. Hardly does a day go by that there is no recording of one killing or the other in one part or the other across the country. And then this killings, of course, again, is affecting food supply. Inflation has increased. Nigerians are finding it difficult to buy food, which is fast becoming an essential commodity. These problems affect every single strata of the fabric of Nigeria. What else can leaders and elders like yourself do to help this administration and to help Nigeria come out of this doldrum?
This administration does not listen to anybody. This administration listens to itself, and it follows its mind. And its minders are not open to reasonable suggestion. Let us go back to federal constitutional governance. We never had this kind of security crisis in the First Republic. The mindset that you must control everything, that all levers of authority must emanate from Nigerian presidency, is the basic take-off point for national insecurity. I'm sorry that the efforts you are talking about, I don't see it doing anything positive. There have been a series of such discussions with President Buhari before. Those who are closest to him have taken the liberty of reaching out to him. They've got to meet with him to tell him about the state of the nation, about the state level of insecurity. Why is it that under his regime, so-called herders are cleansing the native people from their lands and they're occupying them? They have not been brought to books. Why is it that under his regime, so-called bandits have entered into our country? They are rampaging every part of the country. All the forests are no more safe. Yet, the Nigerian state just reacting. In fact, because President Buhari is a patron of Miyetti Allah, Miyetti Allah had been totally in control of most of the activities going on by these bandits, as they've often reflected. They've indicated that the headers are their own and they are protected. They must be allowed onto our streets. They must be allowed to do their work as if other people don't have jobs, their own jobs to do. No other people infringe on the rights of other people. You cannot take your cow to go and destroy my own farm, and you say that I cannot complain, that it is your right. It's unfortunate that that is the situation we find ourselves. But I believe that everything has a time. God is on the throne, and He's a God of mercy. He will have mercy upon Nigeria. This situation, this current situation, is unsustainable. The currently warped, skewed, lopsided national structure that allows a set of people to imagine themselves to be the owners of Nigeria, while the rest of us are onlookers, is unsustainable and is rejected.
All right, Ayo Opadokun, let's also get your appraisal. Apart from the current administration's handling of insecurity in the country, let's get your appraisal of the administration's feat in infrastructure development. Yesterday, the president was in Lagos to commission a number of projects, including the rail line from Lagos to Ibadan. What's your impression about the government's activities in infrastructure development as we mark Democracy Day?
Well, good enough. I say kudos to President Buhari for attempting to revamp the railway system that collapsed under military regime. They have administered Nigeria for 44 out of 61 post-Nigeria independence. So the Nigerian railway, which was a thing of beauty, collapsed under them. It's gratifying that he's doing his best to revamp the Nigerian railway system at a very great expense, because we are borrowing money from China. And because China is busy posturing for international diplomatic power and cleavages, I pray that we don't get into second colonial subjugation. How much I hope that what you are borrowing will be spent judiciously only for the Nigerian people. The fact that it has been reported that the railway system, the standard gauge, will go as far as Kano, and then it will go to Niger Republic, is provocative and insensitive. It's a misuse of Nigerian funds. The so-called volume of trade that Nigeria is supposed to have with Niger is not up to 10% of the volume of trade that Nigeria has with the Republic of Benin. They're not thinking about that. So it certainly must be for sectional reason that President Buhari is doing that. I said that without any fear of contradiction.